Hello everyone, Vinay here. Welcome back to my channel Learn Coding with Vinay SQL for Developers. In this video, we will go over a very important topic of SQL, that is transactions. Right. So now what is a transaction? Now transaction is actually a single unit of process. So there may be multiple queries, multiple things are happening, but it is a single unit of process, right? Now in this video, we will talk about ACID properties, save point, tran count, commit and rollback from TSQL perspective. But let's understand first what are ACID properties, right? As I said, transaction is a single process unit, right? Unit of multiple processes, right? But it follows these ACID properties. Now, what are these ACID properties? First one is atomicity. So all operation in the transaction succeed completely or fail. So basically everything, once a transaction is done or committed, then everything is in or everything is not in, basically, right? Then consistency. So basically when transaction moves the database state from one valid state to another, so basically database will be into the same state before the transaction started, and once the transaction is done, it is in the same valid state, right? That is what the consistency is. Isolation. Now, concurrent transactions do not interfere with each other. That means every transaction has its own space to run, right? They don't interfere each other, right? They run in their separate space, basically separate memory. Then durability. Once a transaction is committed, the changes are permanently saved to the database. Even if after the transaction is saved, even if something goes wrong, but they are written permanently and available for future use, right? So these are the ACID properties, and by default every transaction in any RDBMS system follows this, right? Now let's move ahead with the example. Let me go to the SSMS, right? Let me create one quick table. So what we will be doing, we will be creating this simple table called tran example. We'll have two columns: person name, varchar 15, and mobile number numeric, right? So let me create this. Okay, excellent. And let me go ahead and run the query on this, right? So we don't have anything right at this moment, right? Now let me you know take an example of how transaction works in SQL, right? So what I have done, I in the beginning and I started one transaction, right? And then based on some condition or whatever logic, we will commit it or roll back it, right? So in this example, let's say we are using commit, right? Let's take the positive scenario first, right? And by default, actually, I am using MS SQL Server, right? Express version. So by default, actually, MS SQL is auto commit. So even if you don't write commit word over here, it will commit the records, right? Now this depends on the configuration of MS SQL Server, right? When it was installed, what was the configuration kept, right? Similar thing, Oracle is actually by default non auto commit, right? So over there, if you are writing one query and if you want to preserve those changes, you will have to make sure you are writing the commit word over there, right? So better practice is, if you don't know what is the configuration for your database, better practice is always to write commit word, right? So here what we are doing, we are beginning the transaction, we are putting down two record, right? And let's go ahead and run this. So it says one row affected, one row affected. Let me go ahead and run this. So this is a positive scenario where we are, everything works fine. And if everything works fine, whatever written within the begin and with the transaction tag, everything is getting committed. So data is preserved and we can see two records inside it, right? Now let me delete these records. Delete from. Let me delete this record. Okay. And let's take a rollback example. Now let's say, let me keep this rollback. Right. So what we are doing, we are beginning the transaction. We are trying to insert two records, and but at the end, based on certain logic or error handling code that we will also see in next example. But this is, here we are seeing either all committing or all not committing, right? So here we are writing rollback. So everything written in this begin and end after this begin transaction will not be committed, right? So let's go ahead and run this. So it says one and one inserted. So for these two, it gave us two messages. But here we have rolled back the transaction. So let's see if we, let me keep this query alive, right? So we don't see anything, right? So basically, if we are rolling back the transaction, we don't see any records, right? So this is working fine. Now the next example we would like to dive into is the partial commit and partial rollback. Right now this was all commit and all rollback. Either everything is in or either nothing is in. Right now, certain based on your project requirement, there may be a requirement where you want to commit some record but not other. Again, you want to process something, commit some database changes, not the others. Right. So how to handle those scenarios? So let's do that. Yeah. So let me explain you what I did. So we will be using try and catch, right? So in the begin and try, we'll try to put down something, right? And in the catch, we are handling the error. If anything goes wrong over here between the begin and end of the try, we will roll back the transaction entirely. This is a common practice where you're using try and catch, right? So here I am checking tran count. Now this tran count variable actually gives the number of active transaction. Basically transactions are there but they are not committed to database, so it will give us the tran count. So if here we are checking if tran count is greater than 0, that means if any transaction is pending, do one thing, that what is that thing is roll back the transaction because something wrong has happened. And at the same time we are selecting what is wrong, what is the error message, and what is the error line, right, in our script, right? So over here, now let's try to put down some code. So let me show you what I did quickly. I had the code ready, so just to save time and video length. So here what I am doing, begin transaction, right? And then we are inserting one record into our table, right? Then we are creating a logical endpoint over here, that okay, this is save transaction, this is a save point, this is a database save point, right? That we are just marking up to here, whatever we are writing, whatever SQL queries we are writing, we have grouped it to this name that is called first insert. So basically first insert will have this code in the background, right, above, whatever written above, right? Then we are moving ahead, we are again putting down two more records, right? And then we are over here, we will roll back, we will roll back the we will roll back up to the first insert, right? So what we are doing over here, we are inserting something, we have given a save point name, right, that is transaction model first insert. Then we are inserting two record, right? And we are rolling back up to this, right? So ideally what should happen, this should get inserted, right? And when it goes here and comes back here, right, then it will not commit this, right? It should only have one record. So let's see this in action. So let me first go ahead and check what do we have in the table. So we don't have anything, right? So let me go ahead and run this. Okay, it says, now see what happened, it only inserted one record, right? Because we have begin the transaction, we committed, but in some of the line, this can be done based on some condition, some error handling also, right? Over here it is written that you roll back up to transaction first first insert, right? So this is a logical point. So what this line will do, it will go to this line, and whatever above this line, that will be committed as a data, as a transaction, part of transaction. But after that, since we had used rollback, this will not be committed, right? Now let's do the similar thing. Now let's mark these two also as second insert point. Now, let me, instead of this first, let's say second insert, right? And let's have some code for below this. Right, so I have added. So basically we are in the first step, we are inserting one record. In the second step we are inserting two record, and in the third step, as a third step, we are inserting one more record, and we have commit, right? But now let's consider a logic where you want to commit only a piece of this code based on certain conditions. So what we'll be doing, so let me explain what I am planning. So what we'll be doing, based on certain condition, let me put down one variable over here, let me give it one, right? And after the third insert, what I'll be doing, if input is equal to 1, then I'll roll back transaction up to first. Basically I will commit only above this, right? If it is other than 1, then I'll commit all these, right? This is what we are doing. So basically rollback happens based on certain conditions, right? In real life project scenarios also, it is based on some condition. So if it is 1, we'll save up to this much only. If it is 2, we'll save up to this much, right? Or otherwise we'll commit. If there is nothing, if other than this, then we'll commit everything, right? So let's go ahead and see what do we have in our table. So let me delete data in the table first. Okay, now let's go ahead and run this. So since we have input as 1, and if condition, check out this condition, the input is 1, we are rolling back the transaction up to first level, right? So up to here. So only this much will be committed. So we will see only one record in the tran table. So let's go ahead and do this. Okay, so it did lot of thing. Let's go ahead and run this. See, we can see only one record here. Right. Now let's try to change it. Let me mark it as 2. Let me go ahead and delete whatever we have. Right. So we don't have any record in the database table. Now since it is 2, what it will doing, it will come over here and it will roll back anything after second insert, right? So where do we have second insert? We have mark it over here, and these are save point, database transaction save points, right? Basically they are boundaries of your transaction, right? So anything written down this second insert, right? So this basically will, this basically will not be executed, right? It will not be committed, because here we are rolling back to transaction second insert. So you can remember it as a, just consider this as a line, right? Second insert. So if we are rolling back up to second insert, that means anything above the second insert will be committed, anything below that will not be committed. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's see this. So we don't have anything over here. I'll go ahead and run this. Let's see, we have passed 2. So ideally this 1, 2 and 3 records would have been inserted into the database table. Let's see. So we have 3 records, Vijay, Nilesh and Paresh, right? Vijay, Nilesh and Paresh. This Ganesh guy, this was not inserted because over here we have rolled back the transaction based on certain condition. If this code is not there, it would have committed all these records, right? So this is how usually your transactions are declared, and based on your condition, based on your logic, based on SQL code you have written, you can put down your boundaries, marking save points, transaction save points, and based on some condition you can decide whether what to commit and not to commit, right? So here we are choosing what to commit, not to commit, right? But basically whatever we are choosing, that everything will be committed, and or either everything will not be committed, rollback, right? So over here, if this is getting fired, then anything above this guy will be committed. If this is getting fired, then anything above this guy will be committed, right? So this is how your transactions work. Now let me put down one more after this. Let me put down error over here. Select 1 divided by 0, right, as error query. Let's say we have error of further processing, right? So this will give us divided by 0 error, right? In this case, this will not go to commit, this will go to over here and it will generate the rollback of the entire transaction. So it will not care about your boundaries, whether it is first insert or second insert. It will just go ahead and revert the entire transaction. So let's test this. Let me see what do we have in table. We have 3 record. Let me go ahead and delete this. Again, let's go ahead and check one more time. What do we have in the table? We don't have anything, right? Let's go ahead and run this, right? Let me quickly check whether the code is correct. Yeah, this looks good. Yeah, so let me go ahead and run this. So it says, so there was an error in the query, right? What was the error? It gave us the error number, it gave us the error message also, divided by 0, because of these 3 things. Error number is this, error message is this, and it gives us the accurate line number also. On the 21 line we have error. So basically this would be the 21 lines of our script, right? Let's go ahead and check the table. So we don't have anything, right? Now let's consider the ideal scenario. we are not keeping this, right? And we are also not keeping this. We don't want conditional commit. We want to commit everything. If everything looks good, everything should be committed. So in this case, what will happen? This will also be inserted, this two will also be inserted, and this will also be inserted. So we should have, at the end of this transaction, we should have 4 records in the table. So let's go ahead and check this. We don't have anything. Let me go ahead and run this. This looks good. Let's go ahead and what do we see in the table? So we have this 4 records. So basically everything was committed within this, and this was an example of your conditional comment, right? So I hope you understood this. Now let's move to the next topic, that is tran count. Over here we are checking tran count, but this was a very simple case that only we are starting only transaction one, right? There will be case where you are working on multiple transactions, right? So basically nested transaction. The tran count will be a very important variable at that time. So let's take that example. So let me go ahead and delete this. Let me see what do we have over here. Okay, let's delete this, and let me put down the code I have, right? So I think I missed the end. end, right? So let's understand the code. What we are doing, we are beginning the transaction one. In transaction one, we are firing 2 records, inserting 2 records, and within that transaction we are again firing 2 more records, right? And we are printing the tran count over here, right? Then we are committing transaction one. At this moment, however, this 2 record will not be committed because it is part of this transaction one. So the moment we are committing transaction one, all these 4 records, these two and these two, will be committed to database, right? If there is any rollback is happening, then accordingly it will either rollback or not commit, right? So over here, let's see what will happen. So if I go ahead and run this, considering all good scenario, you know, this should insert 4 records because we are committing transaction 2 and we are committing transaction 1 also, right? And what we want to look at is we want to look at the tran count variable. So over here, we should have 2 transaction count because before this line we have 2 transaction open, 1 and 2 to be committed. These are open and not committed yet, right? If we print the same tran count over here, then transaction 2 is committed basically, so that counter will be decreased. So over here we will see 1, right? And once this is committed, again we are printing this tran count, then this will be 0, right? So let's go ahead and run this and see what is happening. So all record inserted 4, we will see that into table, yes. But before that I want to make sure that what I said, that is the result. Result has printed, right? So first this tran count, so this is 2 because at this point there were 2 transactions active and waiting to be committed, right? Then we are printing over here, that is 1 because at this moment we have committed the transaction 2. So this is gone, it is done, right? And we have just 1 transaction active, which is transaction 1. However, committing transaction 2 does not commit record these 2 record into the database unless transaction 1 is committed, because transaction 2 is a part of transaction 1, right? So at this line, actually this line will preserve the records in database, these two also and these two also. And if we try to print tran count after this commit transaction, then it will be 0 because now we don't have any transaction pending to be committed, right? Now let's go ahead and check the table. So we should see 4 records, right? These two also and these two also, right? So in this video we covered transactions, save point, tran count, commit and rollback based on condition, right? So this is a very important concept of SQL, and you will be also asked what you will be also asked this in interview question, that explain what are transactions, how to commit and roll back based on conditions, right? And obviously from the theory perspective, there will be definitely question around ACID properties. What are ACID properties, right? So I hope I have explained this well. If you like the video, subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for, and if you are looking for more SQL example and tips, SQL tips, join my channel and follow me on YouTube. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. See you in some other video.